All right. Got a lot riding on this one. I cannot lose this. You guys are well aware, unless you're new to the channel, of how I feel about Woodrow Wilson. So I feel like to lose this election, well, I might as well not even have a channel. I ought to just shut the whole thing down if that happens. We cannot lose to Woodrow Wilson. It's the 1916 election. We're going to try out, a bunch of you suggested that I try out New Campaign Trail, which is kind of an updated version of what we did yesterday in the 1860 election. This time we're going to take on 1916. I will be Charles Evans Hughes. Highly qualified guy, the only person who was a sitting Supreme Court justice when he received a major party nomination for president. He offered his resignation to Woodrow Wilson when he received the Republican nomination and went on to lose that election to Woodrow Wilson. We're going to try to change history this time around. Charles Evans Hughes was also the governor of New York. Later on, he will go on to be Secretary of State under Warren Harding, and then he ends up back on the Supreme Court. This time, he replaces William Howard Taft, who had first put him on the Supreme Court. He replaces Taft as Chief Justice. So, let's go ahead and dive into this. War rages in Europe while Woodrow Wilson had used his first term to push a number of progressive laws, such as the income tax and Federal Reserve. Charles Evans Hughes has resigned from the Supreme Court to unite his party and deny a second term. Wilson will emphasize U.S. non-involvement with World War I and his legislative achievements. Hughes must balance the old guard and progressive wings of his own party, or cast one overboard entirely. Here we go. Obviously, we're choosing Charles Evans Hughes. All right, so former governor of New York, we already talked a little bit about it. It will be difficult for him to condemn Wilson's legislation without losing support from progressives such as Theodore Roosevelt. Many Republicans also favor an aggressive stance against Germany, while others believe Hughes should finesse the issue. So it's a pretty complicated one. We've got to choose our running mate first of all. Fairbanks is his historical running mate. He had been vice president before under Theodore Roosevelt. Senator from Indiana. Indiana is going to be a key state for me. In fact, that whole Midwest is a region I need to win. Wilson's going to win the South. There's not a darn thing I can do about that. I should be able to get New York, being from New York, and New York's got the most, by far, electoral votes. But I think Indiana's a good spot for us. Elmer Burkett's from Nebraska, not as widely known. I think we'll stick historically with who we had. Winner take all is how it's done. We'll go normal difficulty level. Here we go. Let's take a look at the electoral map. All right. So, Ohio is going to be tough to flip. It's an 8-point difference. That would, though, be a key state, 24 electoral votes that might have. In fact, had Ohio gone for Charles Evans Hughes, it would have changed the outcome because this was actually a pretty close election in terms of the Electoral College. I think it was like 11 or 12 electoral votes. Had they gone for Hughes, say 12, it would have been enough to flip the election. So Ohio would be more than enough to do it, but I don't think we need Ohio. I think Missouri would be helpful. We're going to need that whole kind of former Northwest Territory minus Ohio. Need to definitely hold on to as much of the Northeast as we can. California would be good, those 13 electoral votes. So what's cool here is we can actually get an electoral vote estimate. And right now it's saying 298, 233, which is actually more in favor of Wilson than what happened historically. So let's look at the states that we need to win and some of the issues at stake. 18 electoral votes in Missouri. They're anti-European war. They're moderate economically. Labor regulation, again, moderate. Few Irish and German immigrants. Irish and German is going to matter because when it comes to how we handle the issue of immigration and also the war, the potential war with Germany is going to be an issue for them. And also women's suffrage, because right now that's a big debate that's going on. And I think the Republican stance was generally at this time, we favor women's suffrage, but it should be left to the states to decide. I don't think they were largely in favor of a constitutional amendment on the issue. But we'll see a lot of state by state. In Pennsylvania, they're actually opposed to women's suffrage. New York, they're in favor of an amendment. So a lot to balance here. It's going to be interesting. All right, back to the game. What themes will you emphasize as you accept the Republican nomination and begin your campaign? Remember, this is a time when progressive is a winning issue with the electorate, no matter which side you are. Theodore Roosevelt was a progressive. Woodrow Wilson ran as a progressive. So you kind of have to balance that. We all can agree on the need for reform in this day and age. Will we have sensible, moderate change or naked overreach? My record as governor of New York shows I'm willing to enact progressive reforms and combat machine politics. All right. We don't want to go too hard after Wilson's legislation, so I think we probably want to avoid this one. I think probably we'll go with my record as governor of New York shows I'm willing to enact progressive reforms and to combat machine politics. Let's do that. This puts you well on your way to running a progressive campaign this fall. Okay, so how does that impact then? All right, so looks like things got a little redder. That's good. Now, I mean, just that one initial act has pushed us ahead at 277, so that's a good start. Popular vote estimator has us slightly behind Wilson, but that's okay. We don't need to win the popular vote. Okay, back to the game. In making appointments to your campaign, and by implication when you are president, will you favor traditional Republicans, progressives, or try for an even balance? All right. I'm a moderate candidate. Let's see. Seems like the initial decision I made to appeal to progressives worked, so I feel like we're going to kind of continue down that road. We probably don't want to go too far, though. Many traditional Republicans are wondering where the compromise with progressive begins and how you're any better than Roosevelt. Well, maybe I want to be like Roosevelt. Okay, so that kind of went a little too far. It looks like we lost Missouri doing that. So we're still ahead, though, 280, 251. Long, long way to go, though. So we probably need to be a little bit more moderate moving forward. Oh, we actually have to choose what state we will visit. All right, let's go to Missouri then. What position will you take in regards to the war in Europe? Remember, much like what happens in World War II, national public opinion is against intervention in war in Europe at this point. That'll change as things go along, and it'll change pretty quickly into 1917. But right now, still against it. What position will you take? Let's see. If Mr. Wilson continues to allow American ships to travel to dangerous areas, it's only a matter of time before we're drawn into war. I will spare no. I have no desire for war. I will spare no effort to protect the legitimate rights of American shipping and commerce. That's kind of the direction I think I'll go here. All right, that didn't really help us too much. Doesn't appear. Yeah, still 277, 254. All right, not too bad so far. Okay, the National Defense Act. So this was a pretty big deal at the time. I think it was passed in 1916. It allowed the federal government to federalize the National Guard, which became huge when it came time for World War I. This is all part of basically the U.S. government saying, you know what, we're not planning on getting into the war in Europe, but we also recognize that our country's not ready for that kind of a war if it happens. So they give the federal government the ability to nationalize the National Guard. They increase the size of both the National Army, but also the National Guard. This enables ROTC, which was pushed very heavily by folks like the president of Ohio State University. So that would be key for Reserve Officer Training Corps, is what ROTC is, for training new officers. So that was a big deal. This was all about bringing the U.S. Army into the 21st century and creating the infrastructure that would allow for us to rapidly go to war if it came to it. So, do I support the level of preparedness established by the recent National Defense Act? Okay. What we've done so far is a good start, but we're still far from prepared. We've taken moderate, sensible steps. I support the mobilization of additional troops along with other policies designed to maintain peace and deter aggression. I like that. I think we'll go there. Some of these so far, like I'm not, I think yesterday when I was trying to bring Lincoln down, I was kind of going with what I thought would get votes. I don't really see one that I think is going to help me more than another, so I'm kind of going with what I think is the right choice with some of these so far. We'll see how they work out for me in terms of the vote. Still about the same, 277. We're still behind by 1.5% on the popular vote. I'd like to get a little further out in front in Indiana. I'd like to switch Kentucky over. That's 13 votes. Missouri, 18 would be huge. Those two there would be very, very helpful. And they're pretty similar in a lot of ways. All right, next state we're going to go back to Missouri again. The Clayton Antitrust Act that was recently passed. Do you believe that unions should be exempted from the antitrust regulations? This one's going to be interesting. Let me go back and look. Missouri is moderate on labor regulation. Kentucky is moderate on labor regulation. California is moderate. Indiana is moderate. So the moderate stance is the way to go here. Yeah, I'm going to kind of avoid this one, I think. I'm not sure that helped me, though. Still about the same. We're still slightly ahead so far. All right, Theodore Roosevelt is hitting the campaign trail hard this fall. However, he continues to make bellicose speeches about the war in Europe. Theodore Roosevelt was really pushing for the U.S. to get involved in this war. Will you distance yourself from his rhetoric? Now, this is a tricky one because the progressive wing of the Republican Party, you got to remember, this is a time in history when the parties weren't as polarized as they are now. Like today, Republicans very heavily conservative, Democrats very heavily progressive, liberal, whatever term you want to use. At this time, you've got conservative Republicans and progressive Republicans. You've got conservative Democrats and progressive Democrats. It's much more nuanced than it is today. So we have to be careful with Roosevelt because we don't want to anger the progressives. So I'll emphasize that I am my own man, and I believe one-sided neutrality of Woodrow Wilson is at risk of pushing us into a war with Germany. I could double down on what Roosevelt's saying, but let me look at the map. They're anti-war, they're anti-war, they're anti-war, they're anti-war. Where's the pro-war sentiment? It's more like New York, which I've got anyway. Pennsylvania. A lot of them are kind of moderate, but seems like anti-war is the way to go. So I'll emphasize I'm my own man. There's definitely some sniping between yourself and Roosevelt, but you may also hold the more popular position. There you go. Yeah, buddy. All right. Still 277, though. We're 3% off in Missouri. Missouri and Kentucky, the 3%, that's where I'm really looking to gain. I'd like to put some distance in Indiana, too, though, in California. Let's go to Kentucky. What do you make of Woodrow Wilson's response to the raids and outrages of Pancho Villa? So kind of a Civil War type thing going on down in Mexico right now. And about this time, the U.S. gets involved in what's called the Mexican Punitive Expedition, where we actually send troops to the border, and guys like John Pershing and a guy on his staff by the name of George Patton actually go into Mexico to try and hunt Pancho Villa. We never get him, but it also highlights some of the unpreparedness of the U.S. military. So let's see. Every good American should support our current expedition into Mexico to apprehend the villainous Pancho Villa. I don't know how people felt about this historically. We could talk about the undefended border. We could go more moderate here. Rather than imposing ourselves on Mexican territory, we should be seeking other ways to assist the rightful government in securing that country. Let's try that. In spite of anti-war sentiment elsewhere, most voters are deeply upset by the death of Americans. Yeah, Pancho Villa raided into the United States, which is what set this all off. So maybe I didn't do myself any favors with that stance. Yeah, I just pushed Kentucky further into the Wilson column. Darn it. I lost a couple percent there. Now it's almost dead even. All right, so mistake there. Should have been a little harder on Pancho Villa. All right, so Louis Brandeis is a Jewish member of the Supreme Court. I don't know if he was the first Jewish member of the Supreme Court, but any plans to attack that nomination? I think I'm going to avoid that. I don't know if there's anything to be won by kind of attacking that nomination. In fact, that helped me to avoid that. So we're back up to 273. Good. Let's go back to Missouri. We're within 2 points now in Missouri. All right, Prohibition. So this is another big one, right? Prohibition, passing a constitutional amendment that allowed for the Volstead Act to be passed, which banned the manufacture, sale, and distribution of alcohol. Failed miserably. That was a bad idea. So Prohibition, it doesn't look like we get a stance on Prohibition. I would guess, though, that Germans and Irish immigrants are going to be opposed to Prohibition. So Missouri's got few Germans and Irish. California's got some. I could kind of not take a... Yeah, I'm going to kind of stay off of that one. That got me up to 280. Okay. So things are solidifying in the South. You can see, like, look at South Carolina. Wilson, 97% in South Carolina. Georgia, 79%. Like, I'm not even registering in the polls in some of these states. My goodness. We could win New Mexico. It's close. California's close. Indiana's really close right now. Man. Okay. How much will you emphasize your own reform efforts as governor of New York as you campaign nationally? My history as governor of New York shows that I can balance the need for reform with the respect for established institutions. I could focus heavily on progressivism. I feel like I kind of hit the progressive thing already. Now I want to show that I can be pragmatic. So let's do that. That may come back to bite me or not. Let's see. Yeah, it did. I probably should have hit the progressive thing a little more. Okay. Let's go to California. See if we can solidify that. What will your position be on the women's suffrage question as your campaign this fall? I think I'm going to go with the Republican line here, which is the states. I encourage every state to expand the suffrage to women as soon as possible. So in other words, I'm saying, yes, I support women's suffrage, but I also support the states' right to make that decision for themselves. I think that'll be popular with the states that I'm trying to win. This is aligned with the feelings of your party. All right. Looks like it pushed Missouri further away, though, but it did push California. Well, maybe not. No, that didn't work out for me so well. Even though Missouri says state by state. Strange. Okay. Do you have any statements to make about the Federal Reserve Act? Oh, this is a very controversial one here. Boy, I don't know. This is going to be a toughie. And I don't really get the choice to avoid it. I support the Federal Reserve in general, but I believe we should have established a more centralized federal government bank. This one could make or break my election. People are surprised to hear you in sympathy with the progressive wing of the Democrat coalition. Yeah, well. What did that do for things? Didn't really change things too much. We're having a rough time pushing Missouri and Kentucky my way, though, and Indiana's within 1%. Let's go to Indiana. Do you plan to attack Woodrow Wilson's stance on the preparedness in war with Europe, and if so, how? I refuse to politicize the security of the United States. Wilson and I are both in support of the current measures. Let's go there. All right, that helped a little bit. That pushed me back up to 273. Man, this is just, it's all so close right now, and we're only halfway through this campaign. California, an important state this fall, is in the midst of a divisive split between progressives and traditional Republicans. What are your plans for visiting that state? Okay, so this is huge because right now we've got a 2-point lead in a state that could make or break my election. We plan our own visit to that state and call upon the governor and his opponents equally to avoid giving offense. Yes. All right, let's do that. Your trip to California went as well as could be expected. Didn't change anything, though. But somehow, suddenly, Wilson's 291 to 240 up on me. What? Ugh. Something's got to happen in Missouri. This is not going well. And actually, New York's starting to fade a little bit, too. What are your opinions on child labor legislation as exemplified by the recent Keating-Owens child labor bill? The Republicans would have stood behind such legislation all along. It would have become law years ago without the obstruction of Southern Democrats. Nothing to lose by attacking Southern Democrats because we're not getting their support anyway. All right. That helped. Oh, that helped a lot with Missouri. That's good. That pushed New York back in our direction. That was the right stance, I think. All right. Good. Still losing a little bit electoral vote, but that's too close to call. So, do you have any statements to make on the tariff question and or the recently established tariff commission as you campaign? So, one of the things that happened was that Woodrow Wilson gets they get an amendment passed and then strengthened under Wilson's administration to start a national income tax, and then they reduced tariffs. Up until this point, the tariff had been the main source of revenue for the federal government, and that began to change during this time period. In defiance of the popular will, the Democrats immediately slashed tariffs and created an income tax upon their rise to power. We propose to undo these actions. This could be a big one to shake up the race. This is a conservative stance, but acceptable to the party. All right. Didn't really change things a whole lot, but Missouri's still super close, so. What's Kansas? Kansas 10 electoral votes at this time. Let's go there. Woodrow Wilson recently pushed through the Adamson Act to avert a railroad strike, which establishes an 8-hour day for railroad employees. Will you attack this action in your campaign? This is a progressive stance. This is going to be popular with the people I'm trying to win. So, Wilson and I may have our differences, but I believe an 8-hour workday is broadly popular and worthy of praise. Yeah. Adamson Act has deeply alarmed the business wing of our party, and they are not excited to see you on board with it. Well, they'll get over it. Ooh, that actually hurt me in Missouri. But it did close the gap a little bit. So, man, it's such a balancing act between these different wings of the party, man. Have any statements to make about the FTC established in 1914? Again, like, where's Missouri, like, on regulation, economics, moderate? So the moderate position is kind of what we're trying to do here. Seems like this is the moderate stance to take. Let's try that. And that didn't help. Okay. Back to Kansas again. Do you support the recently ratified 17th Amendment requiring the direct election of U.S. senators? Up until this time, senators were actually chosen by the state legislatures for the most part. This changed that, and that's the reason that to this day we vote on our senators. It didn't used to be that way. I don't know how people in these states are going to feel about this. All right. Regardless of personal feelings, this amendment obviously went through a stringent ratification process. Yeah, let's do that. That's kind of the moderate stance, I think. Ugh. I'm having some issues up in the Northeast, too. I feel like this election's slipping away from me. What do you make of the Preparedness Day parades? Yeah, we got to remind everybody that the states that I'm trying to win over, they're against the war. So, yeah. Oh, boy. California's tied now. We got to go to California. We support American participation in a post-war League of Nations. This is a big thing that Woodrow Wilson pushed, and then the U.S. Senate didn't even ratify it, so the U.S. didn't actually join the League of Nations. Non-interference. Let's go there. That didn't go over well, I don't think. Oh my gosh, that was terrible. That was like a game changer right there. Am I willing to meet with German American and Irish American political leaders to discuss your beliefs? The states I'm trying to win over don't have a lot of them. I refuse to meet with any hyphenated American group which places another identity above that of being American. We got to do something to shake this race up. Red-blooded Americans, cheer your strong stance on this position. Please tell me that shook things up. It did. It did. Okay. Still not enough, though, man. We need something else to shake this race up. Do you support the temporary curtailment of American shipping in the Atlantic? Government should stay out of it. Okay. Oh, boy, this is close. All right, again, here's another immigration one. We're trying to win over red-blooded Americans. So, I believe any immigrant who seeks a new life in the United States should be required to pass a literacy test. That did not work out. Last one. Let's focus on the Midwest. I think I lost this election. I am going to lose to freaking Woodrow Wilson, and I am not happy about it. I'm really, really, really not happy about it. A lot of votes coming in the South so far, but man, I feel like I lost it just in those last couple of weeks. 266 to win. Almost what you need today. You need 270 to win now. South, as expected, coming in solidly for Wilson. We're not seeing the Northeast and the Midwest coming in yet, which is where I'm hoping to get my votes. I feel like this election's pretty much going to fall exactly as the historic one did, which is not good news for me. All right, Northeast is coming in solid for me. It's not going to be enough, though. Missouri went Wilson. Nah, I'm not going to win it. This is painful. This is so painful. I feel like I might make it a little closer than the historic race was, though. Yeah, he's at 262. He only needs one more state. There it is. I did do better historically than historically. I got 235. It was actually closer than I thought it was going to be. One state. All I needed was Missouri or Kentucky. Actually, I didn't even need that. Kansas would have done it. New Mexico would have given him a 1-point lead, so I needed a little more than that. Oh, my goodness. Missouri, how close were some of these states? Wow. Let's look at the historic results. Can we do that? I mean, because I did really good. 269 to 262. It was so close. Here we go. So here's the historic results. It was 277, 254. So we picked up 8 electoral votes, even though we actually did worse in the popular vote than Charles Evans Hughes did historically. I'm not giving up. I will play this 40 times in a row if I have to in order to beat Woodrow Wilson. All right, so thus far, and the questions are coming in a different order. So, but I supported the Pancho Villa expedition to go after him, which is a change from last time. I think that's the main thing I've done differently this time around, and it seems to be working out for me thus far. I'm at 295 to 236, so far so good. All right, so this time I emphasized my record of reform as governor and as a Supreme Court justice rather than going moderate on that one, and that helped big time. I'm now up to 315 to 216 on Wilson, but still a long way to go. Only 11 questions in so far, so a lot could still change. All right, I think it's a little closer this time, but I feel like he still kind of moved ahead in the end. When I voted when I gave my same answer as last time to the question about meeting with Irish and Germans and saying I refused to meet with any hyphenated American group, which was very popular last time, this time it actually hurt me. So I don't know what the deal is there, but going in, it was a little closer this time, but I still feel like Wilson may have the advantage here. We're going to have to see if any of the states that Wilson won last time flip to me this time around. I'm not sure if any of them are going to. Kansas and Missouri in particular I'm looking at. Kentucky still went Wilson. I got to have Kansas. Oh, there goes Missouri. If Kansas flips and Indiana doesn't stay with me, then it doesn't matter what happens. I think it's going to be the same result. I think it's going to be exactly the same. Even though I made some different choices. It kind of fell apart at the end. Kansas and Indiana. Need to have them both. And California. There went Kansas. No chance. Can't win it now. Would have to win every state remaining. And I just don't think it's there. Especially if Indiana goes Wilson. 3 left. Got to win them all. Nah, didn't happen. He got Washington. What about Indiana? No way! 265 to 266. He beat me by 1. Ugh. I'm not giving up. Okay, pretty much the same stances on everything as last time. The main difference is that I changed the view on what to do about the Federal Reserve. I actually came out in support of the Federal Reserve, but said that I wish the banks would have had a larger say in it. So far so good. 293 is what we're showing right now. Let's go back to Missouri. All right, we're going to take a different stance on preparedness, too. That actually made it a little tighter. We're almost at the end. Current estimated support 272 to 259 with 2 questions to go. I'm going to back off from a strong position on immigration. 267, 264 is estimated right now. We need to focus on the Midwest. We need to get Kansas, maybe Missouri. Indiana's tied. Let's go Indiana. Focus on the Midwest. Here we go. I think I might have it this time. I think I might. It's all going to come down to Indiana. Indiana, Kansas. And they're going to probably make us wait till the very end to see what happened with those states. I love how they do this with kind of the watching it unfold, watching stuff come in slowly. There's that solid block of The South, as we expected. Solid block in the Northeast for me, as expected. There's Ohio, which is going to go for Wilson every time. No surprises so far. All the Wilson states coming in early. There's Missouri going Wilson. Indiana and Kansas are what I'm watching. Indiana and Kansas. There's Indiana. We got it. Come on, Kansas. Wilson's just about out of states now. Come on, Kansas. Look at that. I took the lead. I'm going to lose the electoral vote. The popular vote, but that's okay. Don't need it. Kansas, where you at? There's Oregon. I need 22 to go. We're going to get California. I need one. I need Kansas or West Virginia. There it is. West Virginia never did come in. Let's see the final results. 283. Suck it, Wilson. Take that. Take that. Oh, yeah. That feels good. That feels really, really good. I'm not going to do this all week, guys, but I am going to come back and do some more of these down the road. It seems like they're pretty popular. We might even put a poll up to see which election you'd like me to do next. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I can walk away satisfied. I gave the country Charles Evans Hughes, who I think would have been a very good president. Certainly better than the other guy. Anyway, hit that like button if you would. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Would love to have you stick around and check out some of the other content. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.